Hello, everybody, and welcome to Freaky Friday on the Down the Donut Hole podcast. And we'll check in with the nervous news ever so briefly. And then, coming up, something really fun and interesting, ESP. How many people remember that?
I used to have a game. ESP, the Kreskin game.
Maybe we should play a little game and have everybody kind of concentrate for a while and see if they can predict what we're going to talk about.
Orange.
Yeah, it was. It had colors. You had to predict the colors in that game. Did you have one?
No, but that's the color that just came to mind when we were talking about that. Does that have something to do with the news? Did I predict something in the news?
Orange?
We'll have to wait to find out, won't we?
I don't know.
I'm just putting it out there. That's my prediction using my powers.
Awesome. Awesome. You were very instrumental in helping me to make an admission of guilt the other day. I goofed up the date for Wear a Hat Day, National Wear a Hat Day in the UK, and today is the actual day. Am I right this time?
Yeah, you're right, but I think AI goofed it up. When you Googled it, you can get two different dates for it, too. It did say March 26, 2025.
The buck stops with me.
But they covered themselves by saying it's all month anyway.
Yeah.
They did, and I did, and I'll take advantage
Are you
of that.
quitting?
The buck
Is this your resignation?
you can only hope.
You don't want to get impeached
You
or something?
can
It's
only
not
hope.
that big a deal.
No, it is a big deal. Assume it's a big deal. If it's not to you or Dave or whomever,
I mean,
it's a big deal to somebody, and you have to do your fact checking. And if you goof up, just say you goofed up.
Let me clarify.
And get it straightened out.
I think Wear a Hat Day is a big deal. That's not what I meant by it's not a big deal.
Is that a big deal to you because you have been interested in wearing this very handsome headpiece?
Because I can't afford a haircut right now. But I mean, the charity to raise awareness is a big deal.
For brain tumor research.
But you goofing up the date isn't a big deal. I mean, I don't think you goofed it up. That's my point.
Thank you.
Because if I looked it up, I got two different dates.
You got my back. I love it.
Yeah.
I love it.
So you won't end up in an orange jumpsuit.
Okay. Nice. I am wearing a hat today. This hat I rather like. It's kind of an open weave raffia hat, straw kind of hat. And it's got a little bouquet on one side of paper flowers, like paper mache flowers.
Is this a vision you're having?
No, it's my hat. And you can hear me sliding it on my head. Can you hear that? That's my hat sliding on my head. And I rather like this hat. And ladies, you might appreciate what I'm telling you. This hat is a hat I can wear to the beach. It's not a baseball type cap, which I'm not really fond of. But baseball type caps, if you wear your hair long, then that hole in the back where the elastic is or the strap is, the size adjustment strap, you can stick a ponytail out the back of that. And that's very nice. This kind of hat, which is more of a churchy looking hat, this kind of a hat is harder to deal with your hair. You have to wear your hair down or in a low ponytail, and there's no way to get it up off your neck when you're wearing a hat like this, because if you put it up on your head, my head is too fat for the hat, and there's nowhere to stick a ponytail, so you have to wear your hair.
Well, can't a dude with a long ponytail do that too?
Yeah, but they could.
Or
wear
would you
this
make
hat.
fun of? Would you laugh at him if he did that?
No, no, I would not, because my feelings on all of that is that do your thing. Be you. Just
Be prepared to be laughed at.
Dave, you put it right. Let everybody do their thing as long as it's not hurting anybody else. Do your thing. Dress how you want. Present yourself as you wish. And for everybody else, let's just not.
No bullying.
No bullying. And no bullying, back to playground rules, and this ties up with the news in a way. Just don't bully anybody. Leave everybody alone. It isn't hurting you. Or you shouldn't perceive that it's hurting you in some way. If you're comfortable in your own skin, you present your ideas, your concepts, you conduct your business in a way that's considerate of others, we don't have any problems. Let's just stop beating up on each other over dumb stuff.
Well, I didn't. I mean, you. I know you're beating yourself up over the dates on this, but I had never heard of it before you mentioned it. So, yeah, it seems like a good cause. It's to raise awareness for brain tumor research, right?
Yes. Did you ever have Hat Day at your school when you were going to school?
Oh, I don't remember. I don't remember. Maybe I did.
My kids did. And, that was
I used to
such a
wear a
fun time.
bathrobe to school
Why? Because you just rolled out?
in
and
my
it was the
senior
bus-
year because, you know,
You just show up like that?
yeah, me and
Was
my
there
friend
ever a
did.
commentary that maybe you didn't look prepared?
No, just don't wear a bathrobe to school, I think somebody said.
Did you have your jammies on underneath or a proper school outfit?
No, just a bathrobe.
Did they send you home?
I think
Was
I probably...
that the plan all along?
No,
I
it was-
show up, I get credit for going in.
Oh, I don't know.
They scoop me on back home to change my bathrobe.
Did I mention I delivered to a house once and there was a woman who came out in a bathrobe?
That'll do. I heard the
Okay.
story.
Hey, what's in the news?
The news is the news. You know, there's been a lot of effort to sort of strike the security breach from focus. And there's a lot of effort, of course there is, to say, hey, it's not really a big deal. We didn't reveal anything that was dire, which is open to interpretation. And there's a lot of people who are looking at that and saying, yeah, you did. And we would much rather that you own your mistake, take responsibility for it. Let us know if you're not going to resign or be forced to resign or be fired, then you tell us why we shouldn't worry about you being in that position because it's your job.
Is it
to
really,
make sure.
but is it really a breach when you invite somebody in? It's not like somebody hacked into it or...
You didn't intentionally.
Yeah.
Ali. If there's intent and this person has been cleared to receive those messages, to have an understanding of what's going on, that's a whole different thing than somebody that, got included. It's like being invited to a party that you weren't really invited to, and you show up at the door in your bathrobe, and they're, why are you here?
Yeah.
It's a breach versus a hack. So I
Right.
think that's
Gotcha.
a
Okay.
differentiation in there.
So a hack would be what?
Act of intent by some hacker
To
to
learn
gain
their
this
way-
information.
A breach versus a breach where I guess that this journalist was invited by mistake or something, right?
Well, if you're using your personal phone, and I can see all politicians probably do have a whole list of journalists that they can talk to release information about a project or
That's
updates
for the
on
press
what they're working
secretary.
on. That's not a
not for somebody
but
in their position. no.
offices. There's I get it. I get it. And because you come up through the ranks as a public official, you come up through the ranks and making sure that people know that you're doing cool stuff. That helps your image.
So it is a breach in the sense that security protocols were breached.
But they're saying nothing was like no classified material. Aren't they releasing some of that?
Should have been classified. Let's be
Yeah.
real.
Oh,
At the
definitely.
time, the location, the types of weapons, there's no. They can say that all they want. You can have news people stand there in front of you all day long saying, "Oh, it was nothing. Don't worry about it. It was nothing."
Be happy.
Yeah, don't worry, be happy. And that our point has always been get your news from multiple sources, and especially from ones that don't particularly agree or like each other.
Well,
you listen to both sides, you tally it up as you're the judge
Are
of
these
how this should be
Are these
treated.
conversations being released now to the public, or what's happening?
Yeah, they've been released.
Oh, yeah.
The Atlantic was put in a position where they had to release those because without them being out there for the public to be able to see and judge them, it was being made to seem as if the Atlantic had overstepped and that they were overblowing what the situation was and in trying to assign blame or torpedo the image of the current administration. And when you actually see what that was, and because it was not secured, it's available to be seen by whomever, then we have to forget about the damage control in terms of image, and we need to address the problem head on.
So it's not an issue of the Signal app or platform itself being compromised. It's not meant for that type of conversation,
right.
And so they should have known better than to use that.
They had been told,
even though it's a government. I think it's a government messaging system, right?
For, I think, non-classified, non-critical
right, exactly.
things.
So they should have
maybe to say, hey, I'll meet you for lunch at 2 instead of at 1.
They should have been more responsible with what they discussed.
That's it, and that's generally what I personally want to hear. I want to hear full ownership. If you are commander of the ship, you're the commander of the ship. I don't want to hear any more blaming. I don't want to hear any more about Biden. I don't want to hear about Hillary. I don't want to hear about the mess you were left with. Every president who takes command is left with the remainders of what has gone before. You got to stop whining.
Well, this seems
because it makes you seem weak, like a weenie. Stop being a weenie.
This seems like a specific
incident,
though. Like, it's not like, oh, we need a... No, it's somebody... Who was that? Mike Waltz?
Yeah.
He said, oh, I did it.
And he at least has shown some spine. And he's not encouraged to take full responsibility, and they're trying to minimize it. And the news is trying to tamp this down. And Donald Trump himself has always talked about the fake news, but the fake news, guys, works both ways. And we've talked before on this show that with consolidation in the messaging industry,
comes great responsibility.
Radio,
no, I don't know.
All of the magazines, newspapers, all of the ways that communication happens between our government, all three branches of our government, and the public, those are in the hands, commanded by fewer and fewer people. And nowadays, some of those are owned by the big corporate ownership. And I don't just mean communications outlets. I mean, they own other types of businesses. And so the information that you're getting, you are getting from a very few people who stand to benefit from who's in the White House, from the decision-making that happens in our legislative branch, how the courts rule. So if they're standing to benefit, they need to sway public opinion. And so absolutely do not allow yourself to be sucked in by getting your news from only one place.
So nobody did this to us. This was like, this is a self-inflicted security breach.
This is a goof.
So...
This is like leaving your credit card on the countertop
that's pretty
at
embarrassing.
the store. It's dumb. Or doing something dumb like I did one time. I headed off. I loaded my groceries in the car, and I had coffee. I had a kid to put in there. I did all
and
of
oranges.
Stuff. And I had set my wallet on the roof of the car for some stupid reason, and I drove off.
And you resigned after that.
I resigned, and I've had a life of ease and luxury ever since.
So is that's the big top?
Dumb. We all do dumb stuff.
But is that the big story today?
Yeah.
That's a follow-up on that.
Just that real quickly. Again, more about some of the scientists who, foreign-born scientists who got internships, who got visas to come here and study, are being expelled.
Remember how the scientists used to come here?
Yeah, that's, I think, a thing in the past. And I think a lot of really, really smart people who could have come here and worked, they don't want to come anymore. So that, follow up on Greenland, our visit to Greenland in preparation for our administration's stated goal of accessing Greenland. Apparently they sent around a bunch of people to see if they could set up some interviews with our vice president and his wife, and just a nice,
Why?
friendly little, so that it looks friendly. But everybody that they approached absolutely turned them down and said, no, we're not going to pretend that we think this is anything but you coming over here trying to make it seem like we're open to the idea of being annexed by the USA, and we ain't having it.
I don't know. That makes me uncomfortable.
So it should. It should make you uncomfortable. We've got enough on our plate right now. And frankly, with the
They live in Greenland for
peace and quiet. They don't want us.
they don't need that.
They don't. And our base is already there. We don't need it, guys. And now that the unemployment lines are growing, yesterday, RFK, who is doing some good things, he essentially fired 10,000 more people. So the unemployment line grows and grows and grows and grows. Meanwhile, the price of eggs is still not okay.
We'll all be replaced by machines anyway,
Well,
and
I
then
think that's-
turned into hot dogs.
They don't need us. You know why they want us? You know, the only
there's
reason,
plenty of tires. They don't need us for
the
hot
only
dogs.
reason that they want people, and why they're saying, have babies, go home, have babies, because you are giving birth to the future voting base. That's what they want. They want little voters, and we can't have ethnicities because they might not vote the way we want them to. They're a wild card. Let's get rid of them, and let's keep this focused. We'll put it like that. This sounds way out there, but tie everything together that you've been hearing.
That's a really radical opinion of yours.
It is.
Wait, no, you're not saying that. You're speaking. I get it. Okay.
It is my opinion.
No.
And
I
it's
mean,
based on what I'm
I want to
seeing
I want to
my
clarify.
analysis.
I want to clarify. You're not saying get rid of the ethnicity.
No, I am not.
Don't let anyone be confused by that.
No,
you're not
I
saying
am
that.
absolutely
You're
not.
speaking like
I'm saying that is it
the
seems
mindset
to
of
be a
others.
mindset.
Yes.
When you see wholesale roundups of individuals in a certain category, and the money that's being spent to eliminate these people from being able to vote, from being able to participate in America, because a lot of the people that have been expelled have green cards, have visas, are married to American citizens. Some of them have been born on American soil. And because none of that has been sorted out methodically, it seems like it's part of a bigger agenda. And I can't say that for sure. I'm not saying that for sure. But I am pointing out that it looks like that. And if you peruse the news with an open mind, don't get spoon-fed by one agency. Open your mind. Go and look at some other stuff, especially if your favorite news outlet is pointing things out in one way, go somewhere else too and check and see what everybody else is saying about it. And it's hard to do that. It takes a little bit of time to do that.
No one should have a favorite news source.
No.
I think that's ridiculous.
No,
Don't you think
except
so?
for us. We
No,
should be everybody's favorite.
One of them, but I don't think you should have, this is my favorite one. I'm going to only listen to this one news source.
But
yeah.
you know what? Because it's so easy to do that. To just listen to that single perspective all day long.
You sometimes get better news coverage from the comedians at night.
Yeah.
And on the Weekend Update on Saturday Night Live.
Well, you get a perspective that is not part of the newscast, and so it's all fair. It all balances out. And again, our stated goal with Down the Donut Hole podcast is to throw a little balance in there, to invite balance, to invite other viewpoints, and to, by so doing, sort of bring the temperature down within ourselves in our reaction to the news. Because if you zoom out a little bit, you mix in some other, dilute it a little bit with another opinion or two, and then you have a much clearer picture. You're going to conduct your business in a much more informed way.
In politics,
want.
as in your own life, the only thing you can really control is your reaction to things.
and that's it.
You have no power over what somebody says or
That's
how they
exactly
feel
it.
or whatever.
And so I think we can leave the nervous news.
Unless you can read their minds and predict
the
what they're
ESP.
going to do and say and think.
That's exactly
Was
right.
that the segue
Yeah.
No.
That works. That'll work.
Segue
for
to
me.
what?
ESP?
to heaven?
Oh, I forgot about ESP.
No, you didn't.
And let me just say, Des, you can't self-fulfill your own prophecy and claim to have ESP. About the orange.
Would you?
See, you just mentioned orange. Remember, I
And
predicted
you
that.
knew it.
You mentioned it first.
Oh,
Okay.
all right. How's it work?
All right.
I haven't thought about ESP in a while.
Well, it seems old and outdated and kind of, that's passe, and that's been debunked so many years ago. I don't know. I could be wrong, but maybe some of the younger generation don't even know what that, haven't heard it or don't know what it stands for.
So
I don't
what
know.
does it stand for?
Extrasensory perception. And what do you guys remember from the days when it was quite popular and
You mentioned
on
the Kreskin
TV a
game.
lot and everything?
Kreskin?
Kreskin, yes.
And Kreskin was he was a what? How would you
was-
describe him?
A showman.
Yeah, he was.
He was. I think that was.
I was
think
captivated with it, that's for sure.
It was a set of cards.
Mentalist.
A mentalist, like. You don't want to say clairvoyant because the difference between somebody that has ESP and clairvoyance has more to do, if I understand right.
It's
has to
actually the same thing.
predicting random future events, not like, to use a cheesy example,
Well,
I
it's a-
thought it's time to get supper, and then I looked at the clock,
And it was.
It was.
Well, you got to thank
time
your stomach for that one.
And so that's not the same thing.
No.
That's not the same thing that you're predicting.
No, but since you brought up the word clairvoyant, that was that predated the ESP thing. The ESP thing, as I understand it, was something that the government renamed it so that it seemed like it had more scientific credibility back in those days when they were actually testing that sort of thing.
Weren't they using clairvoyance to help locate
Exactly.
escaped fugitives?
That was
and
part of the
missing
test.
persons?
Yeah, part of the test that they had to see if there's anything to this was to try and actually put it into use for things that they were trying to track down themselves. And I think you remember this too. I think there was one lady who was a clairvoyant for many years before and got recruited for this test. And there were some wayward, I'm going to say, agent of some sort, FBI agent or somebody, who was out running around on the loose and was a loose cannon kind of thing. And they asked her to try to find this person.
Did she? Was she?
Yeah,
able
well, that's
to
the
help?
story. Absolutely. And it's corroborated by others. Anyway, out of the whole country, she came, I forget what it was, Wyoming or something. They were in Washington, D.C. area, Beltway, wherever. And she said he's in, I forget the name of the town in Wyoming. He's in this town in Wyoming. And as it turned out, it was absolutely correct. She only had one letter wrong in the name of the town. They went and found him and brought him in.
Oh wow! I've heard of that. I mean, regularly that they have used clairvoyance and people with ESP for purposes like that. Back as far as finding the Lindbergh baby. When that kidnapping happened, they were using clairvoyance in a desperate attempt to locate the child, which is, to me, is very interesting. We, at home, my only experience with anything like that is kind of mundane, really. I used to run to the store for my mom, and if she forgot to tell me to get something, she would sit down and focus on what it was. She always gave me a little extra money and to go, and she would focus on what she wanted and just really focus on that. And I'd be at the store, and all of a sudden I think, I better pick up some ketchup, or I better get maybe an ingredient that I might not know about as a little kid that she would use. She was big on celery salt. She always used celery salt in her sauces and gravies and things. And I might be at the store and think, I better get some celery salt. So I'd buy a thing of celery salt, and I didn't worry too much about it because I thought if I'm wrong, she's going to use it. Maybe not. Maybe she didn't really need it, but I'll get it instead. Or ketchup. Or now ketchup, I might have realized that we were getting low. And I think that's a.
So you had like a vision that the ketchup was low.
No, I
Oh,
was,
you just checked
oh,
it?
no.
Oh.
My sister and I were in on all dish doing, setting the table and all of that. And so for me to take in that the ketchup might be low because the bottle would be carried by me or my sister to the table.
So what happened? You
So I would get it and bring it home, and a lot of the time she would say, I knew it. And sometimes if it was my sister and I mostly that would go to the store because we were close to each other's age. And so if we went to the store and we came back and she would have one of my brother, he was next in line. And she would say, Bob and I were focusing on celery salt or ketchup, or the ketchup isn't as good of an example, but the celery salt thing was, and other small things like that, dish soap.
Are you sure that was actually extrasensory perception, or was it just that you knew that she always used celery salt and ketchup?
No, it would. I would say yes, that it wasn't a deal, except that she had focused on that, sending that message, which would be more like telepathy.
Yeah, is that different? Do you have to have a vision for ESP? Is it? And they changed the name of it, didn't they? It's something else now, isn't it?
Oh, it's nothing now, officially.
Really? It's just kind of like, because it's kind of like a maybe Penn and Teller debunked it, didn't they? It's like a
lot of people did, and they claim that the scientific studies of it also came to nothing.
It's like a magic trick now.
What about you, Des? Any personal experiences with something that you might call ESP?
Other than orange.
See, it keeps popping up. You can't deny that. You can't deny that.
It's proven.
Yeah.
It's proven.
It's hard to tell, honestly. I mean, I sometimes get confused with that and Deja Vu.
Oh.
And
Yeah, they're related.
And I can't tell if I'm having some kind of quote vision, or some kind of sensing something, some form of clairvoyance, or is it an imagination? Is it a dream? Is it a false memory? Is it a real buried memory? So sometimes I can't think of anything specifically, but I know I have a feeling, and I really feel that I've had these instances where something I thought like would immediately pop up on TV.
Yeah, and not ads,
right?
Which you can figure are probably
It's
tracked.
being spied on you. But like if sometimes you'll be talking and you'll say a crazy random word that will also be repeated instantly on TV, which is very weird.
It is weird.
It's a form. I don't know how to explain that, but it's a sense of some larger understanding or connection to something
like parallel.
Yeah, just
parallel universes
otherworldly or whatever.
I with mind to mind communication, which is different than ESP, but that's
part of it. Yeah.
I wonder about twins. I mean, there's always
That's true, yeah.
There's always this kind of acknowledgement, just general acknowledgement in every culture, pretty much, that twins are able to sense each other's feelings across distance. They just know, and I wonder. Well, I'm sure they've done a lot of tests. They have those big conventions where our twins are invited, and I think how fascinating that is.
I've never been to one of those.
Well, you're not a twin. Or do you have twins in your family that you could accompany to one of those conventions?
No, I just like twins.
That'd be nice.
We'll leave that there.
Is there a way to explain that scientifically, or how do you explain it?
Well, they tried, and I think the the history of it, I believe it's around the mid-'70s or something, and the government or whatever branch of thought it was interesting, the potential, if there was anything to it, that they could use it for spying and, long-distance communications without radio equipment and that kind of thing. And I think it went on for another couple of decades, actually. But the early tests, which there was several rounds of it, and you look this up on your own for sure to get everything exact. But the first rounds of it were pretty simple sort of things like Kreskin did, with the cards. Mm-hmm. There were either colors or shapes on the cards. And then they would have somebody behind a barrier, and they would try their best to try to communicate that. And anyway, the result of all those simple tests like that came to the conclusion that there was really nothing to it. But if there was nothing at all, in my mind, I'm not sure why they would then have decided to turn this over to the CIA. And I'm not sure of the date on that one. But they did. And then the CIA, I believe, went for almost another decade studying it. And they came up with the conclusion, too, that there was nothing to it or whatever. But here's something interesting, in my mind at least. They did report some of the results, and they said that there was only about a 5 to 15% chance that there was something to it with the people that they have tested. There was no details on what these tests entailed. The early ones, like I said, were just cards, real simple things, almost like a game thing. Yeah. Which, in my opinion, I think that's the reason why they didn't get better results, because it was more like a game, not a real earnest trial to find something out like that. Anyway, they said that in the CIA tests, they probably did some more intensive sort of things than just a card game, so to speak. And they said that they were getting like 5 to 15% results.
That's pretty good.
They said, well, there's nothing to it. It's only 5 to 15%. But here's the interesting thing, and there is a connection to the prescription drug trials. And again, check me on this, but I think it's pretty close. I think that's exactly the range of positive results that you get from any particular drug over placebo that we all have on the market now.
So what you're
it can
saying
be
is
as little as 5%. Yeah,
it's good enough for a drug to be passed.
Yeah, and sold and made lots of profit from on the basis of 5 to 15%. That's right.
Success rate.
You can be as little as 5%. And I believe, again, maybe not completely accurate on this, but I think that the 5% over placebo figure is for drugs that have been proven not to have horrific side effects. They'll say, okay, well, there's a little bit of benefit for this, 5% more than placebo. And because it doesn't have real bad side effects, we'll approve it.
So what you're saying then is,
however,
that if
it's
that's
something
good enough to pass a drug, why wouldn't 5 to 15%
exactly
that's good enough to call that
exactly my
successful?
point. And then if they need sort of up to 15% if the drug has horrific side effects, like you hear on TV all the time. So again, that you're right. You have perceived the root of that conundrum.
I read your mind. Didn't Art Bell's show, and I think it was when Heather Wade was hosting, didn't they do like a remote viewing thing?
They did, yeah. I think it was it a relative of Uri Gellar? I think he was one of the big names back then, although he was the spoon-bending guy, I think, primarily.
I remember that. Do you remember?
Primarily.
I remember that, Does?
Yeah, I think the Amazing Randy debunked his stuff.
Who's
that was his whole
Randy?
shtick, though, to debunk everything he could find.
Yeah.
The Amazing Randy?
Yeah.
Randy who?
I don't know.
Was it a TV guy?
No,
he made himself the TV guy, yeah.
Yeah.
He invited on all the talk shows and that sort of stuff?
He did. He
That's a
debunked
good guy.
Kreskin and...
So anyway, I think you did ask me what the science is on this now, and there is a lot more than people realize. And
because of the imaging now, because of the capabilities we have now that we didn't have back then?
I suppose that's possible, But what we do have hard science on now is this really amazing idea of the mindset and how powerful the mind is. And the thing that a lot of people may remember a phrase about mind over matter, and that was also in kind of the same category as ESP. Oh, that's impossible. That's sci-fi stuff. But now science has proven that it actually is something, and it's something very powerful. Your mind can actually change, and we'll do another show on this because it deserves it, that your mindset can actually change your body chemistry, believe it or not. And we will do a show on that specifically.
We're kind of saying that by if you can rein in your nervous energy, chill out, sit down, just get quiet for a little bit. And when we say count your blessings, we mean that absolutely literally. If you sit down for as little as 2 minutes and count the things that are beautiful or wonderful or enjoyable, even if it's a pair of socks that you're wearing today that feel great, or a
your
funny
favorite hat.
Yeah, a great hat or something like that. If you count even the smallest things, even though your life may truly be fraught with a lot of anxiety, but if you just get quiet and then try to tally up as many things as you can, that's not just to be fluffy. That is because it does help you relax. And
is that all tied into like your subconscious? Is that why like some hypnotherapy and stuff works?
Yes, and we do have an upcoming show with a hypnotherapist, which will be...
We actually have an interview. So
exactly.
So that should be...
But anyway, they found that it's there's certain things that you have to have in the formula for the mindset thing to work, and that's to have focused intent on the desired outcome, and also to have some sort of emotion attached to it, and that could be any sort of emotion, positive or negative, apparently. So this all seems to be part of the formula that's necessary for your mind to actually physically change your body. It's mind-blowing, but look it up. It's a real thing, and it's extremely exciting. And I do want to do a show about that, maybe get some clips from some of the researchers that we can play in the show. But anyway, my point with mentioning that now is that going back to the early trials with just basically a card game, there was no real motivation for them. They were just trying to guess, and they knew it was going to be shapes or colors, right? So they didn't have these other things that they were utilizing about this focused intent and some emotion that has to be in the formula for this to work. And that seems to be the difference, and it does seem to translate well to this idea of clairvoyance and ESP.
And that's kind of what Bill Murray's character in Ghostbusters at the beginning, if you remember. He was Peter Venkman. He was a scientist who was doing that. At the beginning of that movie, he was doing the card game and having his students guess the
card,
the shapes or something. Yeah, just shapes and stuff. That's what you're talking about, right?
That kind of thing. Yeah, exactly.
What about Nostradamus?
I do think that it's hard to say because he was way back then. But
well, let's say I think there are a lot of gates that you got to pass through to supposedly access the ancient Nostradamus precognitions, and most of what you see just generally involves an asteroid or climate change, and both of which get talked about in the news now. And with Nostradamus being an early scientist, it's probably not difficult for him to be able to have felt confident predicting floods because floods are going to happen. And I understand he was also an astronomer, so possibly, seeing an asteroid or a comet or something.
Yeah, that's right.
Those could be long shots.
Probably most of what people might think is extrasensory perception experience would be the habituation word. That's when I asked you about your mother, and was it real or was it just that that she uses that all the time, kind of thing. But the common thing that people have reported a lot, and that is you're thinking of somebody and then the phone
Yeah.
rings and it's them, that's kind of common.
Well, somebody that you haven't talked to in a long time. I have had that happen to me many times where somebody will just come across my mind and then you find out that they are in the news for whatever reason or,
Is it different from or a form of intuition?
Intuition refers more to, the collective DNA knowledge, basically in the human race, I think. Things that are inbred, sort of. That's not the right word, but
Is it? Do you think intuition
You get
is
naturally.
more characteristic of females than males?
I think so. I would think so, yeah. That's just an impression I have, but I think that's probably
But
true because they are the nurturers after all.
The connection you mentioned earlier about twins is beyond intuition, though, right?
I would think that there's some connection.
And back
Yes,
to your
they do.
question about, I think I've had some kind of sense of somebody having passed away.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, I haven't thought about that person in a long time, And then I'm
And
like,
then you call them, make sure they're okay, right?
well,
Yeah, but you can't say that.
I
You
did
can't say,
have-
"Are you okay?
No.
I had a
No,
premonition.
no.
I had a
and
very
passed away."
dear friend of mine who I hadn't talked to her in a couple of years, and I thought, I should probably see how she's doing, and I'll text her. And so I texted her, and I got a text back saying, "Oh, who is this? Are you looking for so and so?" And I said, "Yeah." She goes, "Oh, this is her mother. She passed away last month."
That's pretty powerful.
That is very powerful.
Yeah, that's that kind of thing. But, I think in science, going back to that, I do think that there's credibility because the theoretical physicists all say, and actually it's the religious people as well, that everything's connected. And we are all connected to the same wire, so to speak. So it really isn't far-fetched to imagine that there is that possibility that you can get those extra senses from the grid or the ether or the matrix, as it were.
I guess if you figure your brain is, if you look at like our advances with wireless technology and stuff, you can just say, oh, I guess our brain can function similarly, I suppose, transferring information wirelessly.
Exactly.
Well, I think the more we learn about wireless technology and transmission of information through the ether, I think it will inspire a lot of studies and a lot of experimentation that will maybe begin to verify what people have believed for a long time, that there are ways of communicating. Certainly quantum, wouldn't that be
Oh, yeah.
in that same category?
Yeah,
you should-
absolutely.
You should test your powers right now. See
All
if you can
possibilities.
Guess what color I'm thinking of.
We've already debunked that, Des.
Orange.
You
Yeah,
can't
you're
self-fulfill
right. You're right. Yeah,
your
okay.
own prophecy.
So
Anyway, I do have, before I forget, I do have my story.
oh yeah,
Tell
yeah,
it quickly. You only have a couple of minutes.
Well,
Not even.
Okay. This is important, though.
Okay.
One of my most profound experiences with premonition, and that's how I actually felt it in my whole being, as it was a very foreboding negative premonition. And that was on the morning of 9/11.
Oh.
And I was actually booked on a flight for that morning to go to Los Angeles. And I was, I often don't sleep that well before, I know I have to get up early and make a flight and all that sort of thing. But I woke up at, I think, something like 5 a.m. with just this heavy negative feeling. It was really just making me shake, actually. I had to go outside to get fresh air. It was a really negative, very heavy experience. And, well, we all know what happened. And I was, like I said, I'm going to have to start getting ready to get to the airport and all that stuff.
I think there's other people, too, on that day, that particular day, who felt they should not go into work for whatever reason and didn't go. And that says something.
So what happened? So you just decided it overwhelmed you to the point where you didn't understand it or anything. You just didn't.
Well, like I said, at first there's usually a little bit of jitters. You don't sleep that well before any early morning flight, and that's why I sort of chalked it up to that at first. But when it became heavier and heavier and heavier, I thought, this is really weird. Like, oh, am I dying or something? You look for all other explanations for how you feel at the moment.
Wow.
And again, the rest is history, sadly.
Oh, I wish we had more time. Maybe we'll pick this up. Maybe Monday.
Exactly.
I don't know. As soon as we
Any
can.
comments, too? Anybody that wants to mention a experience they've had or whatever. And we will do a special show about the mindset thing because it's completely fascinating.
And we have to say thank you for joining us today. We hope you enjoyed the topics, ESP. Think about it in your own lives, and we'll maybe do another one, and we'll invite comments so you can share what happened to you. Or
Get in
what
touch
you
with
know.
the universe.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Count your blessings.
See you next time.